We're about to learn the verb decir with all of its conjugations and common uses. Previously, we explored the part of the irregular verb neighborhood that has a U-shaped trench. But now let's turn around and go back to the fork in the road between hacer and haber. And let's explore the businesses on the hacer side, with hacer on the right and querer on the left. Here, the street is much nicer. It's paved with clearly painted lane markers. These painted markers between lanes are curiously shaped like the capital letter I. At the end of this street, on the right, is Decir, home of the seer who tells fortunes based on people's words. Decir is a funny verb because it generally takes both indirect and direct objects. The thing that you say is considered a direct object, and the person that you're telling it to is an indirect object as the recipient. Often, one or the other is omitted in a sentence. In the next example we're about to give, the person is le, so that's an indirect object. And we're actually going to attach it to the infinitive, so the word is decirle. This would be translated as telling her. So this has an indirect object or a recipient, her, but the thing that's being told is being implied. So here's the sentence. He wouldn't go to her house without telling her. No iría a su casa sin decirle. In the next example, the thing that is being told is stated. So this will be a direct object, but it's being stated as eso. So both the indirect object and the direct object are being told here. And the sentence is, I have to tell him that, or I have to tell him that thing. This would be, le tengo que decir eso. Now, if we replace the eso with the thing that's being told, we would use a que phrase. So the que phrase would be our direct object. So this is, le tengo que decir, and then an entire phrase. So again, le tengo que decir que, and then a sentence. Let's imagine that the sentence that has to be said is, I'm sorry. So that would be, le tengo que decir que I'm sorry. If all of this is confusing, don't worry about it too much. Just remember that you're likely to see both indirect objects and direct objects connected with decir. And if you see an indirect object like le, that's the person who's being told. But if you see a direct object like lo, then that's the thing that's being said. Now let's dive in and look at the various conjugations of this word. Today, Joel goes to decir with his friends. He tells the pandas, make sure not to say anything that can be misinterpreted. Keep it very simple. Personally, Joel hopes to get a good fortune reading, and he kind of expects to because as they walk in, Joel shows the pandas something he's brought for luck. A playing card. It's the ace of spades, he tells them. I think it means good luck. Unfortunately, the seer hears this, and she shouts excitedly, did you say spades? I know exactly what that means. A spade is a shovel. Joel, you are destined to dig in my backyard for 1,000 years. She gives Joel a shovel. Meanwhile, the pandas remember Joel's advice to say only simple things. The simplest thing they can think of is a single letter. That's about as simple as it gets. So they start yelling the letter D over and over. D, D. Ah, says the seer. That's one of my favorite letters. But there's one letter I like even more. Joel thinks for a second. Apparently D is her favorite letter because that's the first letter of decir. The only other letter he can think of is C. All at once, Joel and his friends say, C? Sure enough, those are the seer's two favorite letters, D and C. So in this scene, Joel's word is digo, with a stress on dig, like the shovel that she gave him. This means I say. The other words have a stress on D, so these words are dice, dicen, and dices. For we say, the word is decimos, with a stress on C. Let's compare these words with the present tense forms of hacer, and you might see a pattern here. Joel's forms are digo for decir and hago for hacer. Then we also have dice for he says and hace for he does. For we do or we say, we have hacemos and decimos. Let's look at some sentence examples. The man doesn't say it. So here we have the direct object, what the man is saying, but not the indirect object of whom he's saying it to. It's just, the man doesn't say it, or el hombre no lo dice. I'm not saying it would be yo no lo digo. We aren't saying it is no lo decimos. Now let's add an indirect object. They aren't saying it to her. So to simplify this, they are saying it would be lo dicen, and they aren't saying it would be no lo dicen. But when we add the indirect object, we have to do the le lo thing and replace le with se. So they aren't saying it to her is no se lo dicen. In fact, this se lo thing is pretty common with decir. Next, the seer takes Joel and the pandas to the red room for the preterite tense. Here, she shows them a pile of hay and a hoe. This is the best way to dig, she tells them. Keep saying di and use the hoe in the hay. This is a bit strange, but Joel tries. He starts digging in the hay with his shovel, and the lizard is given the hoe to dig with. These represent the most common preterite forms of decir. We have dije and dijo. Dije is I said, and dijo is he said. These are actually extremely common words. Now, if we follow the pattern that you learned at hacer, you should be able to extend this to the other conjugations. You said is dijiste, like hiciste. They said is dijeron, which is like hicieron. Dijeron. We said is dijimos, like hicimos. But for now, just focus on remembering dije and dijo. Here's some examples. He told me that he didn't want to see me again. So, me is the indirect object as the recipient of what's being told. He told me is él me dijo, and then that he didn't want to see me again. We'll translate that as que no me quería to see again. So, he told me that he didn't want to see me again. Él me dijo que no me quería to see again. The next example is, I told him, whatever it is, I'll help you. That would be, le dije, sea lo que sea, I'll help. In this sentence, the direct object is actually an entire quote, so it's not a que phrase. It's just a noun that is a quote. So here we have, I told him, whatever it is, I'll help you. Le dije, sea lo que sea, I'll help. Next, Decir throws Joel in the backyard and tells him, dig, which is something that he's completely unwilling to do. He sees several holes in the ground, showing that many former customers previously suffered this fate. The subjunctive of decir here in the backyard is diga, and of course digan, digas, and digamos. Here's an example of a subjunctive of decir. What else do you want me to tell you? Now, of course, since this is an intention for somebody else, you want me to tell you, we would actually phrase that as, you want that I tell you, in the subjunctive. So here's the sentence. What else do you want that I tell you? ¿Qué más quieres que te diga? Joel would rather not dig. He finds the moving sidewalk beside the store, which is decorated with letters D and C. As he climbs onto the sidewalk, he yells to his friends, if someone tries to enslave you, Just say no. When Joel says, say no, he uses the imperative word di. This is pronounced like the letter D. Di. It means say as an order or as an imperative. Now, although di, is the base form of the imperative, Joel more often likes to use the imperative dile, which means say to him or say to her. Or he'll say dime, which is say to me. For example, tell me, what do you want to read? That would be dime, ¿qué quieres to read? When Joel reaches the front of the store, he considers getting vengeance on Decir using magic. He says, I'll say what I want to say by using my magic wand. He pulls out his wand and uses the word dire, which means I will say. Of course, you might have expected the future tense of decir to be deciré, which would be normal, but this future tense word is strangely shortened, just like haré from the nearby hacer. Hacer in the future tense would be haceré, but it's simply haré. So deciré is just diré. So Joel uses the word diré, but then he chickens out because he's not sure if his own magic would measure up to the seer's experience. So instead, he takes a sneakier, more ironic route. He flies up to the roof carrying the shovel with him. The seer's roof is made of dirt, and Joel thinks that it'd be funny to use the seer's own weapon, a shovel, against her. He proceeds to dig a long ditch in the seer's roof until the dirt falls down inside the building, getting in the seer's hair. Then Joel says, There, I've said it. Finally, he ditches his shovel by dropping it in the ditch, and he flies quickly away. The participle of decir uses the stressed syllable ditch, like what Joel dug. The word is dicho. So to say, I have said it, Joel says, lo he dicho. Those are all of our essential conjugations of decir. Make sure you can list all of them by category and practice using them along with direct and indirect objects before moving on.